Welcome to Exploring Santa Cruz, a bi-weekly program on KSQD. My name is Mathilde Rand. During his recent visit to Santa Cruz, Mark Levy sat down with me for a chat about his music and 50-year-long career playing in 48 states in the US and many other countries. Mark Levy is a musician, comedian, and cantor who lived in Santa Cruz for many years and returns every once in a while for concerts. Welcome, Mark.
Well, thanks, Matilda. It's good to see you.
You've been doing a lot of singing. When did you start singing?
My mother said I came out singing. Yeah, she said, you gave me trouble to start with, and you've been doing so ever since. I would show up at my mom's, and 5 minutes into the visit, she would say, when did you say you were leaving? Basically, she said that I didn't talk until I was 4, but I did make baby musical kind of things. I never said like mama or dada or anything. I was 4 years old. We were watching TV. It was a brand new TV at my grandparents' house. And my first words were I pointed at the screen and said, look, there's a man singing. I saved it up so it would be something significant. I've been singing ever since, and I'm also making up for not talking for 4 years.
And what about musical instruments?
They started me out on accordion, which should have ruined me. It was heavy. I was 5, and it was bigger than me. But they started me, I don't know why, on accordion. Maybe it was an Eastern European thing. That didn't really hold. So then I went to violin. I was frustrated with practicing violin. So I went to the piano, and I was playing piano. And my mom said, if you're going to play piano and not practice violin, I'm not going to give you violin lessons. We'll give you piano lessons. So I took piano lessons for about 8 or 10 years. Then I decided piano was like too heavy to carry around to gigs. So I took up guitar. Sometime around then, when I was 16, I took up drums. I am playing quite a bit of drums, full set of traps, actually. 4-piece set of Ludwigs, just like I had when I was 16. Not those, because I think my mom threw those out when I moved to California. That was the kind of thing that was going on at that time. Oh, you're moving? Well, I'll just throw all your stuff out. But it's good. It builds character. And I wasn't going to take a set of drums hitchhiking, so that wouldn't have worked anyway.
Let's talk about songwriting. Do you remember any of your earliest songs?
I wrote songs when I was in New Jersey, which is my home state, and which explains why I live on the West Coast now. I got tired of getting beat up back there. Moved out here. I still get beat up here, but the scenery's nicer, so it's
beaten up by whom and what?
That was a joke, but it's mostly verbal now, not so much. Sorry, New Jersey. I know if anybody's out there, we don't have that reach with the station, but don't come after me. One of the first places I lived up in the mountains in 1973, there was an earthquake on the San Andreas Fault. And so I wrote a song. There's a crack in California called the San Andreas Fault. And I think it's fair to warn you, you got to give it thought. If you're planning to move out here, then et cetera, several verses. And I recorded it with kind of a Dixieland sounding band. I got a bunch of musicians to play. And to play like they were all kind of off, not playing together because it was an earthquake. There was an effect I was trying out on that song. And that's one of the first songs I wrote, 1973.
A typical California song.
I guess. I don't know if everybody's first song were about earthquakes, but they should have been, because I would have heard them. And then maybe I would have been warned, like my song was trying to do.
I understand you're writing a song, a parody, on Let It Be. What's that about, and why did you write it?
I write parodies quite often. I stole Bob Dylan's Blowin' in the Wind, and it's called Ban AR-15s. So the answer, my friend, is ban AR-15s. I sang it yesterday and got a good response. About a half a year ago, when there was a talk of Trump being indicted, I took the Beatles' Let It Be song. I mean, I don't have to write music. I just use somebody else's. And if they want to sue me, they can come after me. Be good publicity. I wrote Could It Be? Now he finds himself in times of trouble. Mother Trumper just might be. Jail time in his future. May it be. That kind of. He will be invited. Could it be? Invited, indicted. Now that he's indicted a million times, I change it to he will be convicted. And I got several verses of that, and you get people to sing along, could it be, let it be, may it be. It was a big hit. I started with it on one of my shows recently, and he's an endless fount of material. I wish it would stop. You can't keep up with it. I write about 75% of stuff I write becomes passé. I had 5 songs about Ronald Reagan. You can't sing those anymore. He's not president, plus he's not alive anymore. So, it's really not fair. I got songs about Clinton, and those go away, and sometimes issues get resolved, and those go away. And so 75% of my material is not really playable anymore, and the other 25% I wish would go away. But they keep giving me material. What can I do? I mean, I listen to the news every day. I know that's not advisable, but I do because I make half my living riffing off of what's going on. And I have some serious songs. Sometimes things are not, you can't make everything funny. So I do have some pretty hard-hitting songs about what's going on in our world.
Tell us about your time you lived in Santa Cruz. When did you get here and why did you come here?
I came out to the West Coast in 1972, and I had a childhood friend who was living in Felton. So I ended up in Felton in the beginning of 1973. I remember it was the day before Nixon's second inauguration. These are how I gauge things, not by divorces, but by presidents either quitting or being reelected. And that was happening then. And, of course, I had to write a song about that. I forget what I wrote because I don't think I recorded it. I was living up in Felton. Then I went up to Boulder Creek and started doing a lot of house sitting in exchange for playing in cafes or restaurants. And I was actually homeless in my car for a while. Wrote quite a number of songs about homelessness, which, of course, is not an issue that has gone away.
We have a song that you wrote about. It's called The Homeless Shovel, so we'll listen to it. But tell us why you wrote that song.
It's an issue everywhere because there's a lot of homeless people everywhere because people are in despair. They can't find jobs, can't work for one reason or another, and they're on the street. You can hear it. It's basically, we want to do something about it for them, but not in my backyard.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's listen to the song.
Now I sympathize with the homeless when I see them on the evening news. Somewhere there must be a place where they can park their weary shoes. Maybe a camp in the country or a building on the edge of town. But that shelter there across the street is only gonna get me down. Everybody should have a home. Everybody must be fed. Everyone has a right to a roof and below it a nice warm bed. We applaud your noble efforts at guarding their collective healths, and we'll gladly give you funds and food long as you can put them somewhere else. See, I don't want to have to lock my door to be inside, safe and sound. This neighborhood will go to pot with the likes of them around. It's no fun out there in the cold, yes, I know just how they feel. But I just can't bear to see a hungry face when I'm eating a nice warm meal. Oh, everybody should have a home. Everybody must be fed. Everyone has a right to a roof and below it a nice warm bed. We applaud your noble efforts at guarding their collective healths, and we'll gladly give you funds and food long as you can put them somewhere else. I've got a friend who owns a store about a half a block away. Every year she donates goods and money to United Way, but she thinks it's bad for business to have the homeless walking by. She says, why not send them south for the winter so they can stay warm and dry? Oh, everybody should have a home. Everybody must be fed. Everyone has a right to a roof and below it a nice warm bed. We applaud your noble efforts at guarding their collective healths, and we'll gladly give you funds and food long as you can put them somewhere else. Well, now please understand our position. It's not the way it looks. We want 'em housed, but out of sight. There are zoning laws on the books. Long as we can clear our conscience and preserve our civic pride, we'll give our consent, even pay the rent on a place where they can hide. 'Cause everybody should have a home, everybody must be fed. Everyone has a right to a roof and below it a nice warm bed. We applaud your noble efforts at guarding their collective healths, and we'll gladly give you funds and food, long as you can put 'em somewhere else. Yes, we'll gladly give you funds and food, long as you can put 'em somewhere else.
While you were here in Santa Cruz in California, you often went to the Borscht Belt. Why?
If people don't know what the Borscht Belt is or was, it's pretty much gone now. It was in the Catskill Mountains, north of New York City, about an hour and a half, 2 hours or so. And they had these hotels that were Jewish clientele, because early in the 20th century, the resorts excluded Jews. It was called restricted, but that was a word for like no Hebrews need apply kind of thing. So we built our own. And in the 20s and 30s, and built it up until post-World War II, it was a real boom of people coming to vacation in these hotels, and I could name about a dozen of them. It wasn't until I moved out here that I got connected with that on the East Coast, and I was going back every summer. I would go around all these different hotels, and I'd be teaching and performing, and I had comedy classes that I did, a lot of Jewish music classes. I would almost spend the whole summer. But I would come back here to Santa Cruz, to my place, and I would book myself on the West Coast for a couple of weeks. And people on the East Coast would go, why are you doing that? Because you're paying double fare for your flight, and then you've got to rent another car and all of a sudden. Well, you have to understand, I'm from the East Coast, so I have to go home for vacation now, which is on the West Coast.
You taught comedy? How did that come about?
When I was in junior high, I somehow stumbled upon Class Clown. A couple of times I would come out with something, and when the whole class laughs and the teacher laughs, I went, aha, maybe this is something that's marketable. I don't book myself as a comedian because I mostly do music, and I book myself as a singer. Because if you book yourself as a comedian, then you're in a comedy club and everybody's like hands folded in front of them and, well, make me laugh. You know, they're expecting that. If I book myself as a singer-songwriter, then I have the element of surprise in my favor if I'm funny. And that's worked for me. You could say that I made at least half of my living making strangers laugh.
Another side to you is being a cantor. How did it come about?
Well, first we'll explain what that is. Some people might not know. That's the Jewish singer who is next to the rabbi singing the parts of the service that get sung. That happened because a fairly local person, Alisa Fineman, she was a cantorial soloist and asked me if I could sub for her. And I said, yeah, I think I can remember that. And that was in 1993 or 4. A word got around. I became the cantor for a couple of different synagogues in the area, not in Santa Cruz, but in Salinas and Gilroy, Morgan Hill. I moved to Oregon in 2019, and I was still coming down here and singing. But then COVID, you might have heard about it. We had this pandemic. I was thinking, well, maybe I'm moving to Oregon. It's a lot slower there. Maybe I'll slow down. I tend to overdo it. I was thinking, well, you know, not retirement, but just slow down a little bit. 2 weeks into the pandemic, I was, get me out of here already. Because I'd been through 48 states and 10 countries in 50 years. So I wasn't used to be sitting home. And I did a lot of stuff on Zoom during that period as a lot of other performers. And that's kind of hard because you don't know when people are appreciating what you're doing, first of all, because they're all on mute. I was doing so many Zooms that my dreams were starting to be in Hollywood Squares format or Brady Bunch. But if you do a Zoom show, you can get people from all over the world and come to that. And musical gatherings, and we did quite a few of them with the San Francisco Folk Music Club. We had people from 5 continents. It started something that we continue to do, hybridized versions of our gatherings and concerts to include people who are from across the pond, as they say, or even Japan, across the other pond. The other thing that I miss about Zoom is the mute button. You can't do that to hecklers. I actually love getting hecklers because I always have comebacks. When you're live, there's no mute button. I mean, as many times as I would like to mute people, in fact, just on the street talking to them, because that's the kind of person I am. I was walking down the mall. That's the first thing I did when I got to Santa Cruz. I walked down the mall because I might see somebody I know. I didn't see anybody I know. But I did see a woman who was obviously lost. She kept looking around and looking at a paper. So I helped her get more lost. She believes that the pandemic was the people that were pulling the strings on that were trying to kill 90% of the population. And so I looked at her and I said, now, why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense. Think about it. They wouldn't have anybody to sell anything to, first of all. And secondly, they have children and grandchildren. How would they control who got it?
You actually have a song about Santa Cruz, Sitting Anywhere.
Yeah.
What's that song about? And then we'll play it.
Okay. It's called No Sittin' in Santa Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
It was 20 years ago or something like that. The council passed a law that you couldn't sit on the sidewalk. I was living here, and I sang the song at a council meeting, city council meeting. And I told them privately, you know what's going to happen. First of all, it's unconstitutional. And secondly, you're going to get people from all over the country coming here just to sit on the sidewalk. That's what happened. And I think it got repealed.
So let's listen to that song.
Well, me and my friends, we shop downtown, and sometimes we just hang around. But when we get tired and we want to sit, the cops say get up and move it. 'Cause there's no sitting in the city of Santa Cruz with its redwood trees and its ocean views. It's the home of surfers and sight gurus, but there ain't no sitting in Santa Cruz. Now you better watch out where you set your tail, or you might spend 6 months sitting in jail. If you bum spare change, you might pay a fine, 'cause being poor is now a crime. No sitting in the city of Santa Cruz with its redwood trees and its ocean views. It's the home of surfers and sight gurus, but there ain't no sitting in Santa Cruz. You're breaking the law if you try to sit, but we're not gonna stand for it. This sitting law didn't get my vote, so we're gonna sit down and rock the boat. No sitting in the city of Santa Cruz with its redwood trees and its ocean views. It's the home of surfers and sight gurus, but there ain't no sitting in Santa Cruz. No sitting in the city of Santa Cruz with its redwood trees and its ocean views. It's the home of surfers and sight gurus, but there ain't no sitting in Santa Cruz. There ain't no sitting in Santa Cruz. Ain't no sitting in Santa Cruz.
I always had the feeling, going to your concerts, that your music was intended, or not intended, but it created community. Was that always your goal?
That's one of them. Yeah, absolutely. One of my mentors was Pete Seeger, who I had the honor and privilege to know and to have played with, mostly on the East Coast. But he came out here for our Western Workers Labor Heritage Festival that was in San Francisco at the Longshoremen's Union that year. And he was just somebody that I was in awe of. And that was his whole thing, was building community through his music, but also educating people. My songs, they're not detailed enough to really be polemic. I follow in the footsteps of Bob Dylan, early Bob Dylan, of Phil Oakes, Janice Ian, who wrote Society's Child when she was 15 years old. Amazing. Songs that talked about what was going on and pointed in a different direction. You can do that with humor. You can do that with music. Like I said before, you can't make everything funny, but if you beat people over the head with it, they're not going to wake up. I mean, try beating somebody over the head in real life. You will know that they will not wake up. And if they do, you won't be standing either. How you can do it, there's a lot of us out there still doing it. We're not commercially successful like we were in the 60s, but it's still, I believe, a worthwhile pursuit. And you get people singing along. Pete was really good on getting people to sing along on choruses. I've written a few singable choruses, so I like to hear other people.
Now that you moved to Florence, Oregon, is that what you're doing, bringing people together with music?
Trying.
Different kind of music. I understand you're also very much involved in klezmer music and Irish music.
Yeah, I started an Irish session. I actually started working on getting a place to have an Irish session. I'm only 2 to 4% Irish, but I found that out. I thought I was 100% Jewish, but then I found out I was 2 to 4% Irish. And Debbie went, see, I knew. She's 100% Irish, so when I stand next to her, I'm 50%. But I went to Ireland and did songs there. People would ask me where I was from in Ireland, and I would tell them, I'm from the States. I've been doing that kind of music for about 45 years. The Jewish music, of course, that I was raised with. I played in klezmer bands, and if you don't know what klezmer is, it's Eastern European Jewish wedding dance music. And it all went to the different ritual parts of the wedding. It's kind of from a bygone era, but the music has stuck around. There was a revival in the 1970s and 80s, and I was playing in klezmer bands, drums, a full set of traps. But I found 2 people that could play that music on the Oregon coast. We have a trio together, and we're getting together with a fiddler soon. It's such a fun music for the drummer because it's all Eastern European rhythms. I also played with a couple of jazz bands since I've been out there. Of course, rock. Sit in with rock jams and blues jams. I play some electric guitar every now and then.
Can I say that music is your life? It's in your blood?
It is in my blood. I'm addicted, so I have to deal.
Yeah.
Sorry for the drug reference.
Yes, that's okay. Having been a professional musician for that many years, any thoughts of retiring?
Retiring. Pete was 94.
If people want to know more and want to contact you, how can they communicate with you?
Well, I do have email. It's mark@marklevymusic.com. That's Mark with a K, and Levy, like Levy, Levy. Yeah. marklevymusic.com. I love doing the Jewish music. I was raised hearing that. My grandmother sang. My mother sang. It was great at dinner. It was like an opera. Please pass the butter. I figure I'll keep doing it for a while. My mom had a cousin who lived to be 105. My father had a cousin who lived to be 102. So, folks, if you don't like me, too bad. I'm going to be around for a while.
Mark, we are getting to the end of the program. We have a few moments for some final thoughts.
Keep being who you are, folks. And if you do music for pleasure and don't necessarily make a living, do it for your own pleasure. Because music I found to be a relief, and comedy as well, a way of getting things out. Joan Rivers once said, "This is my therapy, and you, the audience, you're all helping me get better."
That's a great finish. Listeners, you're being entertained, I hope, with listening to Mark Levy on Exploring Santa Cruz. We discussed many aspects of his musical career and enjoyed some of this music. You can contact him again at mark@marklevymusic.com. That's MARK at MARKLEVYMUSIC.com. And I try to respond to everybody who writes. I responded to both of them this year. I come down to California on a fairly regular basis, always looking for opportunities. Right. So if you have one, please do get a hold of me. Good. Well, thank you, Mark. This was enjoyable, and we'll see you again.
Okay, thank you, Mathilde. We appreciate it.
Right around the time of my interview with Mark Levy, I discovered a song that was written by a person Mark mentioned in his interview, Alisa Fineman. She wrote A Safe Place to Go in 2009. It applies to relationships between two people, between groups of people, between nations, and it speaks of a way we could make a safe place to go for everyone. Alisa Fineman and Kimball Hurd recorded it on their CD, Faith in Our Love. Let's listen to it.
We're all refugees, sailing on some sea, braving storms in search of home, fighting for our beliefs. This is the irony, for we all want a safe place to go. There's trouble in our wake. Look at all the lives we take, claiming the truth to be our own, blinded by fear and hate. We've lost our way, and we all need a safe place to go. A safe place to go. A safe place to go. We're searching for a city of refuge far from here, but maybe we've been sailing past it all these years. For if we are approaching, how will we know we're there if the battle flags are all we bear? What if I let you in? What would happen then? Would I be less or more than whole? If we could listen, really listen, we could make a safe place to go. 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 For we're all refugees, much too long at sea, braving storms in search of home. So lower the sails for peace, and those who dare to dream, for we can make a safe place to go. We all want a safe place to go.